you fill in for Team 7, I guess going back to the career aspect.
Yep.
And
take over platoon of Team 7, yep.
Take over that platoon, you go right to Iraq. How was that? I mean, because you were a platoon commander there, and then when you were at 3, you were a task unit commander. Obviously, or I'm assuming there was a more intimate, from an operational standpoint, being the platoon commander at Team 7. Can you kind of walk us through that deployment and what the characterization of why you were going on deployment, like what was hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish while we're here?
Yeah, it was awesome. So this was 2003, and we replaced Team 5, and we were doing, direct action capture kill missions based on various intel sources. We'd get the location of a bad guy and we'd go out and capture kill. And it was like just awesome. It was awesome. We were stationed with the Grom.
Oh yeah.
So it was us and the Grom living together. For a while, we were the only SEAL platoon in Iraq.
Oh wow.
So it was just my platoon in Iraq, and it was awesome. There was a platoon there for a little while, and then we took their place. And so it was, for a spat of time, it was just us, and we were just get intel to hit targets, plan, go out, do the hit.
I mean, it's like textbook Vietnam style operating, obviously in the desert, but like it's the exact same stuff.
Yep. We had a couple team guy liaisons who were freaking outstanding that were working in the green zone with various other government agencies and various intel networks. And they would just like literally drive down Route Irish, roll into my compound and present targets. And we would put them up on the map, come up with a plan, and we go hit those targets.
Yeah.
It was freaking
textbook.
It was awesome. It was, at the time it was like, oh, this is the dream deployment to be able to do that. And the enemy was pretty disorganized at the time. They were kind of like just a bunch of thugs running around.
IEDs weren't a big problem.
IEDs were a minimal problem. They slowly started to escalate, but not as bad. We were running around in thin skin Humvees. We took the doors off. We'd sit facing outboard, and we had a really good op tempo. We'd do a hit every day, 2 days. I think one time we did 3 or 4 hits in 24 hours. Oh, wow. We did nighttime hits. We did daytime hits. Yeah.
Pretty epic.
It was freaking great.
Did any of the operations go wrong? Like did some of them or any of them go totally or not like you planned?
We got ambushed a few times. At the time, the way we were running our convoys and whatnot was as fast as we could go in our Humvees, totally blacked out, like nut to butt, like as close as we could drive. So when we'd get ambushed, like when we got ambushed, we would get, RPGs, but we had a couple RPGs go over our convoy. We had a couple hit behind our convoy. We'd get machine gun fire in the back of the convoy. I did have one guy get hit, but it was like a ricochet, and so went into his head, but it was like didn't penetrate his skull.
Oh, I got you.
So, and then like the operations, dude, it's 2:00 in the morning, and we stop, the vehicle's a few blocks away, and no one knows we're coming, and we blast their door off the hinges. So those were good. So for the most part, and I'm about to get to tell you where things went awry, I guess from one perspective. So we're good at it, and we did it a lot, and we got into a really good pattern. But right before we came home on deployment, so during this deployment, just about the whole time we were not just coalition forces was targeting Muqtada al-Sadr. So as we targeted Muqtada al-Sadr, and again, I'm just using the we. It's not me. It was like the tier 1 guys are targeting, national forces are targeting, and there was this question of what would happen if we captured or killed Muqtada al-Sadr. And towards the end of our deployment, I guess they started to try and figure out what that looked like. And so we got tasked with going after one of Muqtada al-Sadr's top lieutenants. And we did. And the reason that I say the operation was great, we went down. It was like a 5-hour transit. We went down. We, did what we did, which was, again, like great, cool operations. We hit this target. We captured the guy. It was all eyes on. It was like really very, like high level clearance to execute this thing. And we catch this guy. We get back. And everything really started to escalate in Iraq because of that. So like the next day, I get up in the morning and like we're hearing gunfire and there's smoke on we could see wasn't Route Irish, Route Mobile. Like we could see it from our towers. There's smoke on Route Mobile. And we started looking at the SIGACs, and there was just a bunch of attacks. The guys in the conventional forces in Sadr City really got hit hard. So basically what I'm saying is strategically, we did this operation, and the outcome, I think, was a lot worse than what our leadership, and by our leadership, I mean like the senior leadership in Washington, D.C., I think it was a lot worse than what they expected. And it really turned it became much more of a organized insurgency and a much more violent insurgency at that point. And we ended up, that was, I forget how many more operations we did after that, but that was sort of that was right at the end of my deployment. Yeah. And so as we're going home, I'm thinking, man, what did we just, unleash? And yeah, it spiraled down from there.
Makes for a good turnover party. Team 1, you got it.
Yeah, Team 1 showed up, and actually the Marine Corps Det 1 Raider guys showed up, and we turned over with them. And yeah, we still didn't. I'm saying it with a little bit more knowledge, I thought, oh, wow, that really stirred up the hornet's nest. But what happens when a hornet's nest gets stirred up? They all come out, they buzz around, then they go back in, right? I didn't know that they were going to come out and start building more nests and really get aggressive, which is what happened. Yeah, it seemed like, hey, okay, it's gonna be hot for a few days, but it wasn't. It really was the beginning of a big downward spiral that was going to continue until for the next several years.
Yeah. Well, so that leads into you come back from Team 7. Did you go right over to Team 3 or?
So my commanding officer at SEAL Team 7, who, as I mentioned, was my XO at SEAL Team 2, so this is a guy that I have a great relationship with. He told me, he's like, I got one more thing I'm going to do as a commanding officer. And I was like, oh, what's that, sir? And he said, I'm going to make sure that you're the aide. You're the Admiral's aide. So, of course, that's not the job anybody wants, to go be the Admiral's aide. But that being said, it is, I don't know if the honor is the right word, but it is. It's an honor. So to be selected to be the Admiral's aide, what do? They take a guy who has very recent battlefield experience, who has a lot of very recent battlefield experience, which I did, and they're going to take him and put him with the Admiral so that the Admiral has a direct touch with what's happening on the front lines. And so, and it's great because all the things that you don't learn being at a SEAL team, which you should know, being in the military and being in the Navy and being in special operations and being in NSW, you don't learn those things at a SEAL team. Like there's a whole nother world that happens.
Yeah.
And so it is also a way to educate a young SEAL officer that has, potential to learn and grow and become a leader in the community. Yeah. So it was, you don't volunteer for it, but when you get asked to do it, it's definitely something that I was honored to be able to do. And that was my next job was I go and become the Admiral's aide for Admiral Joe McGuire, and showed up there. The first trip I went on, I forget what it was. I forget how many uniforms, but I wore khakis, I wore whites, I wore blues, dress blues, and I wore camis on one trip. And so, you know, you enter a whole nother world. You know, I'm used to, for the first 35 years I was in the teams, I didn't wear a shirt at work. You know what I mean? Like, and then all of a sudden here I am on one trip with like a suitcase filled with uniforms. But what you see is, you know, I'm sitting in meetings with the Secretary of Defense. I'm sitting in meetings with the SOCOM commander. I'm sitting in meetings with the JSOC commander. I'm sitting, you know, you're the AFSOC commander. I'm sitting in and learning and understanding. I'm listening to the Admiral talk to the Secretary of the Navy, talk to the Secretary of Defense. Like it was a massive education in understanding the bigger picture in the entire war. Because I would go to the Pentagon and sit through briefings. You know, there's nothing but flag and general officers in there, and the aides, right? The aides, us bros in the back are sitting there, you know, but you get to learn so much, and you get to see what's happening at a strategic level. And that also included, from the NSW perspective, you know, when SEALs do something stupid, I got to see how that negatively impacted the SEAL community.
Like in terms of getting work and things like that.
Oh, in terms of getting work, in terms of getting funding, in terms of everything.
Everything, yeah.
So there was a platoon from Team 5, and somehow they had taken pictures, they had gotten shared on some website, and this big, huge news story comes out of, you know, them, what are they doing? They're taking pictures of prisoners, not allowed to do that. So they're, you know, pointing a pistol at a prisoner's head. Well, it's like actually what they're doing is they've got a flashlight on their pistol, and the reason that they're holding this guy's head is because the insurgents don't like their pictures to be taken. So the guy's lighting his face up for a camera. Like, you got to explain those things. But what I saw was the intense scrutiny that the community comes under. And then also we watched the Abu Ghraib thing unfold. So as the Abu Ghraib thing unfolds, now I understand the strategic downfall of when frontline people make little tactical mistakes that don't seem like a big deal. Like, oh, you're going to haze these prisoners. Okay, well, that might not seem like a big deal until Al Jazeera uses those images to fuel an insurgency in a country. Yeah. Like, that's what happens. So I got a huge education there working at that level. And I was, you know, again, you go there begrudgingly because you don't want to have to wear a uniform every day. You don't want to have to sit in a bunch of meetings. You want to be out there shooting a machine gun. But you realize that there's a much bigger picture. There's much more strategic and operational things that you need to understand in order to be a good leader.
Yeah. Are those lessons that you learned in seeing that in that environment, the way that you communicate that to the guys once you're now a task unit commander? I can only imagine that because they didn't see that you know, you would need to kind of super in-depth explain that to them. Like, was that something that you focused pretty heavy on so that they actually understood why? Yeah.
And like the classic example is like uniforms.
Yeah.
So I was from Team 1. Yeah, that's like, oh, you're going to be squared away. But, you know, no SEAL, well, I shouldn't say that. SEALs want to wear what they want to wear. And for me, basic example, like, oh, if you go and work with the Army and the Marine Corps and you look like a bunch of banshees, they're not going to think that you're professional. If they don't think you're professional, they're not going to let you do operations inside their battle space. Period. End of story. Yeah. So task unit bruiser, guess what? We're wearing the matching uniforms. Hey, are they inspection ready by Marine Corps standards? No, but at least everyone's wearing the same damn top and bottom, right? So those kind of things, and I would have to explain, like, listen, I know it's not a big deal to you. I know it's not a big deal. I know you want to wear your Metallica t-shirt underneath your freaking cami top. I know you want to wear your Cabela's hunting pants instead of your, you know, issued camis, but here's why we gotta look the same. Yeah. And actually even more, once we get to Ramadi on deployment, now it's like, oh, if you look different, guess what the Mooj is wearing? Yeah. The Mooj is wearing mixed matched uniforms. The Mooj has beards. The Mooj, if you're not careful, you're gonna look like Mooj and you're gonna get shot. Yeah. So wearing the right uniform is the right thing to do. And the fact that, like, you have to do the right things, going back to what that platoon commander told me. It's like, oh yeah, you better make sure you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
If you're not doing the right thing, there's going to be problems.
Yeah. In that same environment, going back to the Pentagon briefings with SecDef and seeing the kind of behind the curtain that is the machine of the Department of Defense, did anything surprise you or confirm your confidence in the Pentagon, in the war machine that is the United States? Were there any things that surprised you, good or bad?
I would say it's probably what people think the problems are accurate. So you've got this massive bureaucracy. You've got this military industrial complex. You've got some level of micromanagement that can take place, and all those things that you kind of would assume. And not only that you assume, but you also hear. Like the military industrial complex is a word for a reason.
Yeah.
The idea of micromanagement from the Pentagon is an idea for a reason. And so you would certainly see those things, and those things can be very problematic. There's the things that you hear now about the permanent Washington type things. Those things are real. Are they all bad? Nope. There's some good people that are doing their best job. Are some of it bad? Yep. Some of it's terrible.
Yeah.
So the Pentagon is a monstrous organization. There's, thousands and thousands, tens of, well, then there's millions of people inside the Department of Defense, and it's a big monstrous thing. And yeah, it was definitely interesting to sit in meetings, and you could feel a lack of direction sometimes from senior leadership, which is very clear. There was a lack of direction in Iraq. What is winning? Can someone tell me what is winning? I would be in meetings where you could see no one was asking that question, and no one was briefing that. There was no daily mantra of here's victory in Iraq. There was not that discussion. And eventually it turned into how can we not lose? And that's not a good place to be in. So I think the hard questions that get asked now, and I think the group of governmental leadership that is, our generation that's kind of moving in that direction right now, I think they're going to ask a lot harder questions than have been asked in the past.
And ideally, learn from those mistakes and not repeat them.
Absolutely, because having spent a lot of time reading about the Vietnam War and having talked to a lot of veterans that served in the Vietnam War, we did not learn what we should have learned, and that is absolutely inexcusable. Yeah. And the Vietnam War, when you start looking at the Vietnam War and what the American governmental leadership did to the soldiers, sailors, and Marines that fought their hearts out, is like, it's unforgivable.
Yeah. And
for us to not take those lessons and look back and apply those, it will be unforgivable if we make those mistakes again. And by the way, we did make those mistakes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah. So unforgivable.
Yeah. When you were in that environment, did that rattle any of your confidence or kind of impact your mentality now going as a task unit commander and going back into an environment where you had just spent several years seeing the kind of chaos and the who the fuck is running this thing? Like, how did that impact you going over and now leading troops in combat?
So there was two good. Well, that was one part of it. The other good thing was on my first deployment to Iraq, I did a bunch of operations. I did a bunch of DAs, a bunch of direct action missions. Every guy's freaking dream, right?
Where you're actually doing it because you're
yeah. I'm saying like we did. I did a lot of those. Yeah. Like do what I want to do more. If you and I could go hit a target tonight, yeah, I'll go hit a target tonight.
Probably do it.
Of course, but we did a lot, right? So when I get to Ramadi in 2006, so going back to let me rewind 1 second more. We had put together a pretty awesome intel shop in 2003, 2004. Because what I said, we were just getting all these targets. And so now we start assembling like, okay, who are these people connected to and how can we get their friends? And we end up with this wall in my tactical operations center. And I called it the Beautiful Mind Wall. Did you ever see the movie, The Beautiful Mind? So at the time, the movie was pretty new. And it was, this guy was putting all these pictures up on the wall and connecting all these dots. And so we built a wall like that, an actual wall that was probably 20 feet long, 7 feet tall, that had all of this target information on it, all of the target packages, all who was connected to who. It was awesome. And we would, sure enough, every couple nights, grab one of those target packages off that wall and capture or kill that guy. And either put a green circle with a green line through it, that guy's gone now, he's been captured, or a red circle with a red line through it, that guy's dead. And it was pretty awesome to do. And so fast forward, now I go and I be the Admiral's aide, spend time in the Pentagon, spend good time seeing the strategic picture. And now I go to Ramadi. It's been about 2.5 years. And when I show up there, the intel officer that was my intel officer is now the intel officer at another command. But I know her. She's, we have a good relationship. She was squared away. She's a squared away person, squared away intel officer. And the commanding officer at this other command, he's one of my friends too. And I show up in Ramadi and he's like, hey, let me show you what's going on. So I go down to his place. And he starts kind of like telling me what's happening in Ramadi. And he goes, well, come meet my intel officer. And so I go, oh, hey, what's up? So I know her. And I walk into her intel shop. And on her wall is a big, giant link diagram with all the bad guys that they're going after. And how many they've captured and how many they've killed. And it's impressive, right? It's very cool. And I also realized that it's been 2.5 years. And this wall, even though some people have been eliminated, has just been repopulated and repopulated and repopulated and repopulated and repopulated over and over again. And by the way, it wasn't just this unit. Every unit in Iraq was doing this. Every unit in Iraq, Army, Navy, coalition, Marines, everyone was going out capturing bad guys. That's what we were all doing. And yet you could see that it was just repopulating with different insurgents. And that was when I walked out of there, I thought to myself, we're going to lose. We're going to lose this war because this is an enemy that just keeps reappearing. And it's playing whack-a-mole. And I went back to my tactical operations center that night, and I had heard that there was a new counterinsurgency manual that was coming out, and I Googled it. And there was a draft version that I downloaded and sat there and read.
Open source?
Open source. And FM 24.3 or whatever, but counterinsurgency. And it was the one that General Petraeus had overseen the writing of, and his top colonels had come in and helped write this thing. And I read it. And I said, okay, this is what I need to enable and help happen. So that got the idea in my head of the main thing which is secure the populace. Like there's notes in there, or what it says is that the decisive terrain in the battle for an island is this mountaintop, or it's this airfield, or it's this beachhead. The decisive terrain in a counterinsurgency is the people. You have to win over the people. And so as I read that, I thought to myself, okay, this is the decisive terrain is the people, and we need to, what it says in the manual is secure the populace. Now, I immediately started talking with my commanding officer, like, hey, we got to secure the populace. And he was kind of like, yeah, well, okay. Kind of like, what are you even talking about?
Dial it back.
And then what happened was about 3 weeks after we arrived, there was the people that had been on the ground in Ramadi, the 228, which is a National Guard unit out of Pennsylvania, freaking outstanding. But it was their time. They'd been there for 14 months. They'd done an incredible job. They'd made huge sacrifices. They kind of got control of the outskirts of the city. Well, a new group came in to take their place, and it was the 11 AD, which was the 1st Brigade, 1st Armored Division. and they had come from Tal, which is in northern Iraq. And when they had showed up, when the 11 AD had showed up in Tal, they had turned over with H.R. McMaster. And what he had done is this thing: seize, clear, hold, and build, which is go out into the local neighborhoods, set up combat outposts, get control of the local populace, and secure them. And so the 11 AD came, and General McFarland, colonel at the time, decided he was going to enact this plan of seize, clear, hold, and build inside the city of Ramadi. And as I came to understand that plan, I recognized how we could support it, primarily by trying to keep the insurgents away or eliminate insurgents when they would attack combat outposts as they were being built in the city. And that's exactly what we did.